To this. So artifacts and evidence are not intended to cause you to produce a binder, right? That's, Shauna said that yesterday, that's why we picked CEL5D, is we don't want a binder. They don't want a binder. They don't want a pile of stuff.
Your administrator probably will not require you to bring in your documentation. You might want to keep it on a spreadsheet somewhere, just have it, and so you can use it when you're writing up the end of the year summary of your student growth goals, but don't collect it all.
I would say, I'm not using numbers now, I'm going to, I would say the majority, 90% or more, is all conversation. It's those conversations you had during passing period, or conversations in your pre and post conferences. That conversations are your evidence. So that's kind of a relief. There are some things you might have to show, and so one thing, it happened by fluke the first year. I got my evaluation and she said, look over it when you're ready to talk about it, let me know. I almost fainted because my score was really low. Turns out she forgot to add in a whole category, so it was a good thing I looked at it. But then when I got close enough that I was like, I know I'm doing some of these things. And I actually said, yep, I'm ready, and I invited her, or she said, I'm coming to your room. Best thing that has ever happened, and now every conversation happens in my room, because where do we keep, I mean, you already said that, right? Where do you keep all your evidence, right? It's on your computer, it's an assignment that you have, it's one of them, like the formative assessment one, right? You have a system for documenting formative assessments. They are never going to see that in a classroom, right? Not the system of documentation. So you have that you just have all these things, and if you can just open them up or show them, it's not a binder, it's something I stored in a folder in Outlook or whatever it is. So it's fine. And now that's my all the time procedure. I always invite my administrator in for those final ones, because that's where we keep our stuff. So.
And if you're doing parent communication, she talked about putting in an Outlook. I do that every year. I put a folder down and put down the year, and all my parent communication goes right into that folder. If I'm making phone calls, I have a small little binder I write down that I contacted the parent, or the parent contacted me. And so if they want evidence of that information, I can provide it for them.
Sometimes if it's a parent that I contact often, I'll keep a running sheet in the student's Q file and just keep notes on it that way too.
I will say one thing that worked really well for me, and it was a fluke the first year, and now it's kind of my standard. The first year, my administrator gave me my evaluation, and she said, this is where I think you're at. Let me know when you're ready to talk about it. And I looked at it, and at first I think I kind of went white. She forgot to add in a whole section. So I rechecked my math, deep breath, right? And I said, okay, I think I'm ready. And she's like, great, I'll come to your room. Total fluke. But if you can do your final observation or final evaluation in your classroom, and they say, well, I know I do this. And they're like, well, when or how? Or like one of them is, you have systems for collecting formative assessments, right? They're never going to see your system. But if they're standing in my classroom right next to me and I open up my book and I say, I do a vertical line because they did it this many times, or a horizontal line because they got the answer wrong, but they were, like we all have little codes that we use. But if they're in your classroom, it's really easy to show them that evidence. So now, even though I've changed administrators, I still invite my administrator in for that final one, because we have all the evidence and we're all doing these things. So invite them in. I think it's a lot more comfortable.
For somebody who absolutely needs evidence, I would just recommend keeping a couple of samples, like 2 samples of kids that didn't make it or made it, just a couple, if you absolutely feel the need. Please don't bring everything.
You don't want to will let you know too. If they have a need to see something, like your pre or post, they will let you know that if there is a need.
I do think it's fairly safe too to just have that first observation and just do what you do, right? Don't overplan. I'm going to try and fit all these indicators in. No, just do what you do, and I think you will be amazed at how much the administrators see. And then from that, maybe your second, or if you want to do third or fourth, however many you want to do, you can start to be more specific. But that very first one, I always kind of tell my students, the first time you take a test from a teacher, you just, I don't know, I just, me personally, I never studied really hard for the first test because I didn't have any idea how they asked questions or how many questions, or am I going to have to do multiple choice or essay? I mean, I'm not going to waste my time studying. I don't know how to do that, right? So, and then the second test, I always did much better because I had an idea of what I was going to do. It's kind of like that with this. That first observation, just do what you do. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
I think that's great advice, because I think those indicators that it looks really overwhelming that there's a lot that I remember after like my first or second observation, I was like, oh, I was amazed at how much was coded that I didn't realize that I had done just by doing what I do. So just trust yourself and don't overthink it for the first little bit.
And don't freak out if your kid doesn't behave while the administrator's in there. It was talked about yesterday, but sometimes it's good that something like that happens because then they get to see how you handle it. Or
they can help you handle it in the
future.
future.
Absolutely, they can give you some advice and stuff. I know that my principal was in and I had to remove a student out of my class for a short time, and he never even knew that he had left. He knew that there was a problem, and then we did some group work, and then during that time I removed the student, and I also got him back in, and the principal never saw the whole process of it. Well, you know, instead of me yelling across the room, you know, Joey, don't throw that chair. Yeah, you know, so that's good for them to see too, is how you handle problems when they arise. Well,
You're going to do great.
Yeah,
I'm just going to say that.
yeah.
You're going to do great.
okay, so the booster sessions, all three of us totally agree that if you can make them, go to them. They're invaluable. The one that's in October, it has to do with goal writing. You get paid to go. They pay you your per diem, which is pretty cool. And then if you attend the minimum of 3, you can receive clock hours. And clock hours you want to keep because they can move you on the pay scale.
So for certificate renewal.
Yeah, the district needs to have a copy of that, but keep them. Don't get rid of them.
We said about boosters.
Turn 'em in.
Oh, I use this. I'm an Auburn cheerleader. Okay, I love working here. I think this is a great place to work, and this is just one example of that. The state requires a day of training. So everything that you guys have learned, the state says do it in a day, and Auburn's like no. And they give you 2 full days, which I know at this moment while we're dying to pee, you're like, why? But think of all of that support, right? They want it clear that you know what you're doing. So not even in addition, you get the 2 days, which already you have the extra day. Now we're going to pay you 7 more hours to make sure that it makes sense as you're working through the process. This system is not a gotcha. It's not a we want you to do. They are doing everything they can to make sure that we do well. So I take advantage of that. They're trying to help us.
Support to be successful. So.
And it's definitely not us against them, the administration versus us. It's very collaborative. The district hasn't always been that way, and they moved to the model many years ago. And it's just so nice to feel like whether you're a teacher, para, or whatever, administrator, that we're working together for the common good, and that is the student.
In a couple years, talk to your friends who got a job this year too. They are going to be quite envious. When I compared my sister or stepmom or friends, when I say, well, in Auburn we get to do, they're like, what? And yeah, this is a great place to be. So you made a good choice. They didn't pay us to say that.
No.
Or extra.
I recommend, again, go to that student growth goal booster session. If you have only one time that you can make it there, try and make that one your priority. Take your draft with you Oftentimes there's time within there to collaborate with other people around you to get other perspectives about your student growth goal. And I know that because I've been to that session myself so that I become more familiar with it. They'll ask if somebody even has something that they want to throw out there to help. Be the first person to raise your hand, and your goal will be written for you by the group, and it will be perfectly lovely. I've seen that happen. The others that are there, they are very helpful. It's a good session to go to.
Do we need to sign up ahead of time for those, or do we just show up?
Just show up, and then you sign in there.
Yeah.
Questions, concerns? Maybe it was a worry or need you had yesterday that you put on your poster. Differentiation. It's not even a dimension. It's just, but it comes up in several of them, and for high school, I find that very difficult.
With so many kids.
Yeah, and keeping pace. Like, how do you move an entire chemistry class of students forward and do labs at the same time if you're kind of staggering how much and what you're doing? I struggle with that. That's my personal one.
At the elementary level, I think one of the ones that the teachers struggle with the most is kind of that locus of control one. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. And like, what does that look like at the kindergarten level? Well, it's hard at the third grade level as well. So I think that one in particular there is a little bit challenging on elementary.
I'll be honest with you, the first year that I was on it, I was like stressed the entire year until I got all done. I'm like, and then I look back and I'm like, oh, it really wasn't that bad. I just made sure that I referred to the cards often, and if I wasn't meeting certain needs, then, well, I guess my big thing is communication with parents. In fact, I had that as a goal last year, and I had some grandiose ideas, like at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea, and then I would try to pursue it, and I'm like, oh, and so that's a work in progress for me, because most kids in my class are passing, and yes, I could send little notes saying, you know, your kid's a superstar, and I could obviously do more of that, but most of my kids are not failing, and we give out progress reports quite often, and so I would say that that's the one that I struggle with the very most. Yeah, and we're available, so once we get the school year going, some of you won't see any, well, she's high school, I'm middle school, and elementary. Feel free to email us, because we do this because we want to help people, and so use us. I sat down with you.
I'm going to tell you guys too. Yesterday, I loved it when you did your compass things. You guys are a very optimistic group. Like, you look at this and you think that this is going to be great, and I love that about you. So please don't change that. I really love this evaluation, and I have teachers that have been teaching for a very long time, and I kind of overwhelm them, and they just kind of roll their eyes at me, and we're used to that. But give it a chance. I mean, I love having the conversations with my principal. I've had good conversations, I've had long conversations, I've had really short ones. So much more in depth than we ever did before. And a lot of you wrote that. You wrote that you're excited for those things. You're excited to increase student learning. Keep that up, okay? In 10 years, still be excited to do that. Because I do think that this process helps with that.
Yep.
I still feel motivated, so. It's good.
It helps those of us even who have been around a little bit longer to find ways to improve ourselves. You guys are just starting out, most of you, but even down the road, it helps just make you better. So it's very encouraging.
Yesterday, you guys filled out your posters, your compass posters, and you had to do what excites. You guys came up with some really good things that were exciting. I'm a little bit of a nerd. I love this evaluation, right? This is great. I get to have conversations with another adult who wants me to do well and wants my kids to do well. That had not happened before. Right? Here, it's kind of like this. Read it, sign it, we're good. We smile, okay. We have like real conversations now. I can see areas in my own teaching in the last 3 years that I have gotten better. Like, it makes me continually question what I'm doing. And that, I don't think that happened before. And you guys were all excited for those very same things. You all wrote that down, that you were excited about increasing student learning and the conversation and all those. And I was just like, listening to you read your exciting, I was excited. It made me excited all over again. So please stay optimistic. Please keep that. I think, honestly, strangely, that an evaluation process encourages your optimism. I think that it really does. And I don't know that if when I started teaching I would usually say that. That's like saying a test is going to make you smile. But I think that this system does. So keep your optimism. It's impressive. Yeah. You're going to do awesome.